What's up, slashes and slashettes? My name is Nightfall, and today we will be discussing my theories on what we will end up getting for the upcoming Fnaf and DBD crossover. So, a little bit ago, it was announced that Fnaf will finally be coming to Dead by Daylight in the summer of next year, leaving time for us to speculate as to what we will be receiving in the Fnaf chapter. Not only was this one of the biggest chapter announcements in the game's history, but it also has the potential to be one of the most interesting chapters as well. I'll go in order of theories that I find the most interesting, and the ones I put the most thought into. I'll also go ahead and warn you that I will only be using the majority of the games and potentially the movie in this video, as I personally haven't read the books or watched or played the Security Breach Ruin DLC, Help Wanted, or Help Wanted 2. So without further ado, let's begin with the map, as I do believe it'll come with a new map. We do have multiple options, giving them many different games in the franchise, all taking place in multiple different locations. However, I feel like there are two very obvious choices. The first one being the pizzeria from the first game. Obviously, this is the most iconic as well as the original, so it's very possible that this would be the map we get. However, I believe another good runner-up would potentially be the Pizzaplex from Security Breach, as that game is not only more recent, but also received a lot more coverage and publicity than some of the other games. I also would like to give an honorable mention to the Underground Complex from Sister Location, just because I feel like if those two options aren't what we get, then it would most likely be this one. Moving on from the map, I want to talk about the Survivor, and there's three that I can think of, so I'll go in order of possibility. First one is Gregory, as he was the protagonist of the Security Breach game. However, as most of you know, and for those who don't know, this would not be the choice unless they choose to age him up like they did with Yoichi, as behavior will not allow children, or maybe can't. I can't remember if it was due to laws or just preference, but anyways, they will not put children into the game, and any license that involves children that are added, such as the ring, will have the child character aged up to at least 18. I just don't see them really doing that for Gregory, though, but it's still a small possibility. Next up, I actually think a good contender lore-wise would be Henry Emily, who was William Afton's partner, William Afton being the man behind the slaughter, the main serial killer in Fnaf. But I believe while lore-wise it'd be interesting, he is nowhere near as iconic and doesn't make as much sense as the third pick, that being none other than Michael Afton, William Afton's son and the protagonist of the majority of the games, who makes it his mission to not only stop the spirit of his father, but to also find all the animatronics who have the souls of his victims inside them and set them free. Gameplay-wise, I believe the perks we would get for whatever survivor we get would be focused mainly around playing solo and aura reading. I was thinking having a perk that shows the aura of killers whenever they search lockers or perform grab animations, as that's the closest we have to being jump scared in DBD. Having a new item perk like Flashbang that's instead a surveillance camera referencing the security cameras from the first couple games that will show the aura of the killer to every survivor while the killer is in its radius, and potentially a perk that prevents gen regression in some way, referencing how in the first couple games maintaining your power is of the utmost importance. I gave them the security camera as a perk since survivors should work as a team, and it's a way to help them out. But honestly, it was a struggle coming up with perk ideas, considering that the majority of the games are focused on protecting yourself, trying to find where the animatronics are and monitoring them. So other than aura perks, I really had to think outside the box. But those three perk ideas, I feel would be very good for a FNAF chapter, as it pays homage to the originals rather than some of the newer games, which would be more well known and familiar to long-term FNAF fans, while introducing newer fans to its origins. With that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the theories I have about the killers, their perks, and potential powers. So when it comes to the killer, I actually have 4 killer possibilities that I think could make sense, or at the very least be a fun concept, such as my first pick for killer, the Marionette. The main reason why I consider this one, though, is mainly just due to the fact that I think having its power be related to the music box and having survivors have to constantly keep it wound up would be a really fun addition to the game, as it would give survivors another objective other than generators and make matches more intense, as this objective wouldn't be an optional choice, but rather a necessity that they'd have to monitor and complete consistently through the match. Next up, I'll actually discuss the next two killers together, as I feel like one would honestly probably be a skin for the other, with the first being Vanny. She was sort of made to be a diet Springtrap and sort of take up the mantle, so to speak, as well as being the main antagonist of Security Breach, which is a much more recent game. However, I feel that she would just end up being a cosmetic for probably one of the most requested killers in DBD history, Springtrap. Now, as for his power, I honestly don't know. Everyone seems to agree on Rareth Link's concept, so I assume that would probably be the best ability. I just genuinely couldn't think of much else to give him other than maybe somehow incorporating Balloon Boy's hello into the gameplay in some way, but I'll link their video down below. Now, honestly, I do think that Springtrap will be the killer we get and has the best chances of getting in. He is a serial killer in the franchise and the main antagonist who always comes back in some way, shape, or form. He also definitely has the popularity and is the character specifically requested to be added by the fans themselves. However, one thing I'd like to explore would be the last killer, or rather, killers, I believe have grounds to be added. That being the original 4 animatronics, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Now there are 2 reasons for why I think they could work. First, these were the animatronics that started everything, and each are in a large number of the games, and are almost or just as iconic as Afton himself. The second is the variety this would give for both gameplay and cosmetics, so let's go over their ability and then go over what I mean by cosmetics and in everything with what I believe the killer's perks would look like, no matter what killer we get. So I think using the OG cast of characters would make for a very complex and interesting ability. When the animatronics are chosen as killer, a main stage and Pirate's Cove will be placed on the map, and the killer will start off playing Freddy, Bonnie, or Chica, depending on who behavior would want to make the primary killer, as well as add-ons that would switch up who you'd start with. While you play, you can also switch between the 2 animatronics that are stationed on the main stage. After either a certain amount of survivors are injured, or maybe a time limit or something, you gain the ability to switch to Foxy, who is stationed in the Pirate's Cove. Each animatronic has unique things they're good at. Bonnie is good for chases, since he's almost always the first animatronic that moves, giving him reduced pallet stuns and faster pallet breaks, but can only inflict up to deep wounds on survivors, or maybe has a multiple hit down or something like that to balance him out if needed. Freddy is good for gen monitoring, being able to break generators faster and cause them to have faster regression, maybe even blocking it for a short amount of time, referencing how when the power is out, Freddy is the one who comes to get you. So he can cause the gens to lose power. And Chica would be maybe a stealthier killer, having ways to become undetectable, or could be a more strategic chaser than Bonnie, blocking windows, pallets, and lockers, referencing how she's also an animatronic that moves around a lot, can't be seen while in the kitchen, and how animatronics would appear in the windows of the office when you need to close the doors. Lastly would be Foxy, who would have a massive amount of movement speed, as he would run down the hall towards the office. I was debating on giving him the faster gen regression, as in the game when he bangs on the door it causes you to lose a lot of power, so maybe they could also incorporate that somehow. I'm not sure. Honestly, with these 4, they can do a lot. They could incorporate a power system that survivors have to pay attention to, though if they go that route, then have that be the cooldown for switching to Freddy, and make him the more powerful one instead of Foxy. Or they could make them all stealth killers, with different ways to activate the stealth and attack, like giving Foxy kind of like the pig's ambush or something. Obviously, switching to and using the other animatronics no matter what will have time limits and cooldowns. But maybe when you're not using them, the others can walk around like Nemesis's zombies and reveal survivors with killer instinct, or just stand still in an area and do that. Basically, this killer concept is like a mixture between Knight, Twins, and Nemesis. Overall, though, I don't see them incorporating jump scares into the killer's ability, even though that's really important to Fnaf. They tried that with Dredge, and it kinda worked, but not really. Ultimately, I think the jump scares will be reserved for the killer's Mori, no matter who we get. Now, with that, the ability's done. So let's talk cosmetics. So I feel like using the OG4 has a chance of getting picked solely based off of cosmetic potential alone. You see, with Springtrap, you are limited to just Springtrap variants and potentially Vanny. Not really any other animatronic. But by using the OG4, you now have access to the toy animatronics, the Funtime animatronics, the Security Breach animatronics, and a bunch of other random animatronics from the other games, books, and the movie. It offers DBD the most potential financially, which is the most important aspect for them as a business, but for us fans, it also offers the most potential for playing as our favorite animatronics. Ultimately, like I said previously though, I still do believe Springtrap will be the killer. He makes way too much sense and is more popular of a pick. I was mainly just wanting to entertain an idea that would give us the most potential gameplay-wise and fan-base-wise by referencing as much of the games and animatronics as possible. So with that, let's move on to what I think the perks will look like. So the killer will definitely have some type of undetectable perk, as most of the games are you not knowing where they are, trying to find them, and or hiding from them. So it just makes sense for them to have a perk or two that'll let them do that in game. Maybe one that, while in a certain radius of a regressing generator, they become undetectable. If that isn't already a perk, to be honest, it's getting really hard to keep track of them. I also think that they would have a gen regression perk to reference the power system in the first couple games. Maybe it regresses faster for each character within your terror radius when you kick it, or something. I'm not really sure. Honestly, that one might exist too. And lastly, I think the third perk would capitalize on isolated survivors, causing them to gain different levels of debuffs the further they are from other survivors, referencing how for almost all the games you play as a single person who does things alone and are the target of these animatronics. Overall though, I'm really excited to see what they do, as there's lots of ways they could take this chapter, and I can't wait for it to come next summer. So that was all the speculations and theories I had on what we might be getting in the FNAF chapter. Feel free to leave your thoughts on them down below, as well as any theories of your own, as I love hearing what you all have to think, and I love coming up with ideas and speculations, and seeing if other people think about the same things. It's always really cool to share theories. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If it's your birthday, happy birthday, and I will hopefully see you all soon. Goodbye.